All right, it is 5 o'clock, so I will call to order this meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee. We'll begin with the roll. Alder Feldy.
Present.
Alder Ackley.
Here.
Alder Flicky-Paneski.
Here.
Alder Perella.
Here.
Mitchell's here. We have a quorum. Will you all please stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, barring any objections, we will hop over item number 4, introduction of committee members and staff, and move on to item number 5, which is the approval of the minutes from our January 9th meeting. Do we have any discussion on the minutes?
Move that the minutes be adopted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Seeing no further discussion on the minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. With that, we are on to item number 6, which is RO number 96 of 2223, submitting the City of Sheboygan analysis of impediments to fair housing.
Thank you, Chair. So this document is a requirement to receive federal community development block grant funding. We're required every 5 years to take a look at what's happening in the local community as it relates to providing fair housing, particularly affordable housing. So a number of this, I guess, so every 5 years we updated. The last time it was updated was in 2017. We were still in the old census. So then in 2020, we got new census. And the delay in getting this updated was to try to get census information out of the Census Bureau so that we had updated census numbers, so we weren't using 10-year, 12-year-old data. So this is current with the 2020 census, and there's some interesting facts in here that I would encourage everybody here to kind of take a look at and read, but I just want to review a couple of the successes since the last plan. And then there's some impediments and recommendations going forward that I think some of them are policy decisions, some of them are state and federal policy decisions that need to be changed, but it's really being provided to you as a resource and to kind of give the council an idea of what kind of some of the impediments are. So just in brief, we continue through the CDBG program to fund different sources to help with fair housing impediments, such as budget and finance counseling, post-purchase housing counseling, and then leveraging other nonprofits to provide additional resources for homeowners to rehabilitate their properties. We also use the CDBG for first-time homebuyers class through the organization that Alder Perella works for, Lakeshore Family Service Association Consumer Credit Counseling. So we're happy for the partnership there. They also do some tenant training classes that's funded with CDBG. We updated a fair housing guide, so we've put it into into Spanish and English. And that's a resource that's distributed through the library, city hall, and other public areas that if people have fair housing complaints, like they've just been discriminated against for housing by a landlord or something of that sort, they can file, they can figure out where they need to file it and then file it through either the city has an ordinance and a review committee, or organizations like Consumer Credit Counseling that does a lot of this. And then we added the city 358 units of affordable housing. As you know, there's another 4 projects in the hopper for additional affordable housing. The city continues to diversify our boards and commissions. We have the now called the Affordable Housing Fund to increase the supply of funding, supply of safe and affordable housing. And then the Sheboygan County Housing Coalition partnership, and they meet quarterly and help with homelessness and different housing solutions. So there is a number of things that are identified in this plan, and if anybody has any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them. What we'll do next is, after the council approves it, submit this to HUD so that we're in compliance with the next round of allocations that we get through the CDBG program.
Questions, comments from the committee? Alder Perrell?
I just want to comment that I really enjoyed the analysis. I think it's great, and it's a lot of really good information to have. Some also came as a surprise. I really enjoyed it, though. It's a great tool. One quick question. You said about the complaining, how to file a complaint. Why don't we have that in Hmong as well?
Because by our Title VI plan, we're only required to, for federal funding, we're only required to have them in English and Spanish to meet the amount of concentration, I think, that's outlined in that plan. We could get it in Hmong. It wouldn't be the end of the world. We could work with our partners to get it translated.
Right, it's not a huge document, is it?
No, it's just a pamphlet.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll just, Jack, commend you and your team for the depth of information that's in this report. I know something that we are required to put together, but it actually does look, or does contain a lot of information that I think is going to be valuable for the city as we continue to look at housing. So this was very timely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if there is no other discussion, we'd be looking for a motion to approve on this one.
Motion to recommend to council?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. With that, we are on to item number 7, which is resolution number 127 of 2223. A resolution approving and adopting the amendment to the City of Sheboygan 457B Deferred Compensation Plan for the CARES Act.
Thank you. This item and also the next are amendments to our current structure of our plans that we offer for employees through Nationwide. This is one of 3 vendors that we have that offer programs to employees. It is 100% employee opt-in and employee costs. So whatever the employees are putting in, it is not any city dollars that go in, but these were additional recommendations that came across from our Nationwide representative to make sure that we're offering everything we can to our employees.
Questions, comments on this one? Alder Flicky-Paneski?
Thank you. I am interested in the vendors that we have, one of 3. So when we have those vendors, do we have in place somewhere that every 3, 5, or 7 years, we go out and we do an RFP for other vendors just for due diligence?
I can't speak to the history of what we have done in the past. I know we have had these vendors for quite a number of years. For example, Wisconsin Deferred Compensation is one of the other vendors, and that's through the State of Wisconsin Employee Trust Fund Program. So that's one that would probably stick around with WRS being a thing. Chuck will, it looks like, hop onto, but with it being completely employee opt-in, it would not fall into our normal category of rebidding.
Just a little bit of history. I don't know all of the history behind it, but this particular plan, the Nationwide plan, came primarily to the city as the result of requests through the unions. So originally, most of the people who participated in this plan were union members, but it is open to all employees at the city. So that's how this particular vendor got involved.
Any other questions or comments on this one? If not, we'd be looking for a motion to recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Next up is item number 8, which I believe is a related resolution. number 128 of 22-23, a resolution authorizing the appropriate city officials to execute an adoption agreement for the extension and offering of additional investment options with Nationwide.
I won't add anything else. I think we covered it in the first one, but if you have any other questions, you can let me know.
Any discussion on Resolution 128? If not, we will also be looking for a motion to recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. With that, we are on to item number 9, which is a direct referral of General Ordinance number 19 of 22-23, amending Section 82-33 of the Sheboygan Municipal Code so as to modify the city table of organization.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. This evening, we have some proposed changes in the table of organization at our wastewater treatment facility. And with us this evening, we have Jordan, our superintendent. I'm going to defer to Jordan real shortly, but I just wanted to say Jordan had the opportunity to overlap for about 6 months with our prior superintendent, and it was a great opportunity for them to work together and have a great seamless transition into the future management at the wastewater treatment. And during that time, even during the transition, some of these proposals that are coming before you were talked about and anticipated. So just wanted to say thank you again for allowing us to make this presentation this evening.
Thank you. And yeah, for those of you that I haven't met, Jordan Skiff, wastewater superintendent for Sheboygan. As David alluded to, these changes have been in mind for quite a while. Obviously with the compensation study taking much of the time of 2021 and into 2022. That's why some of these changes haven't been brought to you guys until now. But now that the compensation study has been officially approved, the appeals process has been completed, we hope that it's the right time to look for any sort of reclassifications that might be sought. So the 3 changes that I'm asking for from you tonight and then hopefully from the City Council are to move 2 positions up in our grade scale and then to move 1 position down. And I'll try to explain that a little bit more. In the past, the wastewater plant had about 2.5 positions more than it does now. We used to have a full-time lead operator, and what I'm proposing is that vacant position instead have one of our full-time 4 operators just move up into a lead operator role, but still stay in that operating role as well. And so essentially, instead of having 4 operators and a lead operator, we would have 3 operators and this lead operator who also operates. Similarly, we have 3 maintenance mechanics, and instead of having a maintenance supervisor separate from that, like we used to have, I'm proposing to promote one of our current maintenance mechanics into a working foreman role. So again, instead of having the 4 people in that area that we used to have, we would still have 3, but I would be allowed to promote one of our current ones into a kind of a mid-level manager role. And then the third change is that we had a gentleman retire late last year who was in a network role, taking care of our instrumentation and our computer networking there at the plant. He had also been in a supervisory role, and when he retired, we didn't feel that supervisory component needed to remain, and so we would look to actually reclassify that position so it's a grade lower than what it is currently. That position continues to be vacant simply because we wanted to follow this process and try to have a reclassification done before we filled that position. And so it would be nice to move this forward so that we can fill that position with the new job description. It was back in November that I submitted a memo and then revised job descriptions and revised job description questionnaires to then City Administrator Wolf, asking to kind of follow this process. And so here we are tonight. Caitlin and her team did forward those revised JDQs to Carlson Detman, who reviewed them and has recommended that first position, that lead operator, move from the current operator position of grade 11 to a grade 14 because of the supervisory duties and other roles that that person has taken on. The maintenance foreman would be moving from a grade 11 to a grade 13, and then that network position would move down from a grade 13 to a grade 12. So again, I know that I've covered a lot and there's a lot more that could be said, so I'm just going to wait there and see if you have questions or if there's anything I can clarify. But again, hopefully if you're supportive of this and then the city council is, we'd be able to recommend, or we'd be able to promote a couple of our current people and then fill that vacant position.
Alder Feldy?
Yes. The short and long of this, I imagine this is not going to even out in the amount of money for the city. Can you tell me how that's going to unbalance or balance?
Well, it will certainly be an overall increase. I mean, 2 positions moving up in grade, 1 position moving down a lesser amount in grade. One thing that I did notice in looking at the trend on our accounting software is that our budget for wages has stayed fairly flat at the wastewater plant over the last 7 or 8 years, in large part because we, again, used to have those positions filled that have been vacant for several years now. In fact, if I remember right, looking back at our actual expenses of 2021, which are the last year that I have the full numbers for, we actually spent less in 2021 on wages than we had back in 2016. And so we've been pretty frugal with our wages at the wastewater plant by not having those positions filled. This again would increase that amount some, but that wastewater fund is very healthy. And I did talk to Caitlin, and we're comfortable that we can absorb this financially, and I don't think it will affect rates or anything like that directly.
I just wanted, and he finished it up with, the wastewater, this is totally funded through the sanitary sewer rates. It's not, doesn't affect the general fund. It's a separate funded budget.
Good to know.
The other aspect that I wanted to have Jordan add is that with the maintenance position being upgraded, it's part of a succession plan because the remaining 2 other positions are going to be close to retirement within the next 2 to 3 years. And so getting this position in place now will help us in the future in terms of getting that maintenance section replenished in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Perella?
Yeah, so I'm in favor, there is no problem. The only, for me, and I understand the move, I also appreciate the idea of the succession plans at any time that is possible. This way, however, you will have, so the person who is going to be potentially promoted to the lead operator supervisory position, as well as the parallel supervisory position for the foreman, basically they will have, I don't know how much of their time will be in the supervisory position, so you will have less of that lead operator of that or of that foreman. You are not going to need to replace those positions anytime soon, though.
That is an excellent question, and they're 2 separate situations in a way. One thing that I didn't mention before is that we have had one of our operators in that lead operator role, even though it hasn't been official, and unfortunately he hasn't been compensated for that for almost 2 years now. Again, this was a change that was made by Steve Jossert, my predecessor, and I applaud it. I think the gentleman that's been filling that role has done a great job. And he has been able to take on some of these additional duties as a lead operator while still serving on his rotation as kind of a regular operator. So that, I think, would be seamless. One other side note on that, he has actually taken on more responsibility since I started. Steve was a licensed operator himself, and some of the DNR reporting and things like that need to be completed by a licensed operator. I am not a licensed operator. And so Tyler, the gentleman that's been filling this position, has taken on some of those even additional duties since I started. And we're trying to basically have the paperwork and have the table of organization match what's been in place for quite a while now. So as far as will we be able to continue with 4 operators, I'm confident that we can, because Tyler has basically been in this role for quite a while now. The maintenance foreman position that's a question that I think we'll be looking at. I would estimate that maybe about 20 to 30% of that person's time will transition from simply doing work orders to running things like overseeing our work order system, ordering parts and materials, scheduling and overseeing the work of some of the other maintenance mechanics. And so that is a concern. It is something that we want to keep an eye on, just to make sure that we don't lose effectiveness and the ability to get work done by having this position filled. I do think, though, that so much of my time is spent doing administrative duties and overseeing other parts of the plant, that I think that our maintenance section will get even more done by having somebody in this role. To have somebody there working shoulder to shoulder with the other mechanics and being responsible for saying, here's what we're going to do today. I mean, I can do that to a certain extent, but I'm certainly not with them all day the way that this position would be. And so I think that this is actually something that will make the plant run more efficiently and more effectively.
Thank you.
Alder Flicky-Pineski?
Thank you. I have 3 organizational questions. One, when I see organizational structures being moved around, are you adding any more circles or squares or lines on your table of organization?
Essentially, what we would be doing is adding kind of a layer of a mid-level manager instead of, right now, it's a very wide table of organization down at the wastewater plant. Essentially, out of a dozen people, I directly supervise 10, and 1 is supervised by one of the other people. This would put 3 operators under that lead operator and 2 maintenance mechanics under that maintenance mechanic foreman. And so instead of it just being all of them reporting directly to me, there would be a lot more ability to delegate.
So we're not adding, we're putting a new layer in with the same number of circles and squares?
Exactly. No new positions are being requested.
Okay. You referenced Carlson Detman. Did Carlson Detman look at the going from 11 to 14 or 12 to 13, whatever, was that authorized through the study?
This was a process done after the study was completed and after the study was approved.
It was an appeal?
It was basically a reclassification request is what I would call it.
Okay.
And so Carlson Detman reviewed that after the study was approved, and they weighed in with a memo to Caitlin in December and recommended these new grades for these positions.
Okay, thank you. And I was understanding this is not a net neutral financial thing.
You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments on this one? If not, I'll just say thank you as well for how much depth there was to the plan behind this. I felt comfortable with it as soon as I saw the memo from Carlson Detman attached, knowing that this had gone through the same process that we've gone through with all of our other classifications in the city recently. Appreciate having all of that information up front.
Thank you.
Alder
I
Flicky-Pineski?
have one more question. Has our new HR director seen this? Yes, the answer is yes.
He's in
Thank
day
you.
6, so in day 3
Day 6,
maybe
he
he
saw
saw it.
it.
Yes.
Day 3, he saw it. Thank you very much.
All right, any other discussion? If not, we'd be looking for a motion to recommend approval.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second, then seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have item number 10, which is a direct referral of resolution number 129 of 2223, authorizing the finance director / treasurer to issue Caitlin Krieger merit payment for her extraordinary service to the city.
Oh, you're here.
Suppose there will be nobody coming up to speak on this one, since this came directly from the committee.
That's great.
I'll answer questions if need be, since I reviewed it.
Fair enough. Do we have any questions from the committee? Alder Ackley?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment,
That works too.
if that's okay. Caitlin, thank you for everything you have done. We really, really appreciate all the hard work. And I know that, we can only do so much, but I just wanted you to know how much we truly appreciate all the efforts. And I know it was hard for you, but thank you. Thank you for supporting us and supporting the city and the residents, and especially the employees. You're awesome.
Well deserved.
Alder Perella?
Well, Alderperson Ackley just stole my comment, but I actually wanted to say, of course, I'm 100%, 150% in favor of recognizing the excellent, extraordinary work that you, Caitlin, have done. I have seen I think I witnessed a few times how hard that was, and I really, the words only get that far, right, to recognize someone. I have, though, a question. Since I assume, and I would like to have a confirmation of that the hard work that Caitlin did during the very hard times in which she had to work basically 1 3/4 jobs, I assume that had an impact on other employees in your team. And then my question at this point would be, if that is true, then we also have to look into recognizing other people that have been impacted by that extra effort, which perhaps have not received as much recognition. I mean, I don't know if we have and how we have recognized that hard work that has been done. On the level of the team. I don't believe that, although I know how extraordinary you are and the work that you have done personally, but I don't believe that that had not an impact on the rest of the team.
I would very much agree with your sentiment. I have some extremely great people that work with in finance, and we've had some great people in human resources too. I will say that there are at least 3 employees between finance and HR who did receive additional compensation throughout that time, including one that you approved last week at council. So that was for acting pay for the payroll position, because there was a vacancy in that position during November and December. So I will say that others were being compensated throughout this process. For example, the administrative assistant who joined HR back in May received additional compensation because she was doing duties well above administrative assistant type work. So those were recognized throughout pay increases. But I believe, and I can have City Attorney Adams comment if necessary, but the ordinance, how it was written, would have excluded me completely from any type of compensation.
Yeah, that's why it's done this way, is because the ordinance didn't cover this kind of thing. And in fact, the last one that came through to you only came through to you because because the ordinance generally has to go through an administrator, and without an administrator, we wanted to make sure that it went through to you. So you wouldn't have necessarily seen all of them, but Caitlin's right.
Can I follow up briefly? Do you feel that that compensation was fair?
For those other
And
employees?
fair and sufficient?
Yes, I believe so, and I do think that one employee is no longer here, and I have talked to her about that previously, and she thought she was being taken care of, so.
Much appreciated, thank you.
It's great to know. Any other comments on this one? Otherwise, I won't repeat everything that was already said. I will just succinctly say that something like this I would probably not be in favor of most of the time. I immediately jumped on board. This is very much deserved. I believe it's fair. Thank you for basically living in the building and keeping us above water. And with that, I would ask for a motion to recommend approval. All right, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. We have exhausted our agenda. Our next meeting will be on February 13th. And with that, we are looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion on adjournment, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.